What's good, YouTube? Quinn Wade Basketball Analysis here, coming to you with a quick video. Today, we're going to talk about the Detroit Pistons. I got to keep it real about this team. I am a Reggie Jackson guy, getting that $16 million, but cannot stay healthy. Every time he hasn't been able to stay healthy, they haven't been able to make the playoffs. Obviously, when you commit that much money to a player and you make a trade for that type of player, you definitely have in the back of your mind what they could do and what they could bring to the team. Obviously, when Reggie Jackson first gets to Detroit, he helps them come close to making the playoffs. The next season, they make the playoffs, and the Detroit Pistons was happy. Yeah, we got a good team, we got a good roster, we got a bright future with Tobias, Reggie, and Drummond. Then 2 years later, they haven't made the playoffs in the last 2 years. Tobias Harris gets traded for Blake Griffin. He comes in, he doesn't mesh right away because he has to learn his teammates. Plus, they don't have the floor space in order shooters. They thought Stanley Johnson would be a 3-and-D guy. He cannot really shoot the jumpers at all or even shoot a three consistently. So it really hurted them last year, not having the floor space and not having the playmaking of Reggie Jackson slashing to the basket, creating shots for himself, Drummond or Blake, and being a pick and roll dominant player. And the closer, Reggie Jackson done showed then, now, even this season that he can close games still to this day. And you want a guy that has the ball in his hands to have that type of confidence, especially if he's going to play with the ball in his hand a lot. And Reggie Jackson is one of those guys that's not scared to take or make or miss the game winnings or the shots that matter the most. And he has come up big for Detroit, a team that gave him a chance to show that he's a starting point guard in the league, that has gave him a chance to show that they believe in him, giving him that extension, letting him be a starter, and he proved it by helping them get to the playoffs. The problem with that is they invested $16 million a year for Reggie Jackson, and he hasn't even been close to playing the whole full season, even though they have came close the last 2 years to making the playoffs. Reggie Jackson missing significant time was definitely a big factor of why they didn't make the playoffs, because he done missed over 30 games, I believe, in the last couple seasons, which really hurts his team because they need him to play. And Andre Drummond is not a dominant offensive player. Yes, he can kill you on the boards. Yes, some games he can get you 20, but he can't do that consistently. And Blake Griffin needs some help with the ball handling because, yes, he's a good passer for his size. Yes, he can create his own shot for himself and for others, but if he has another guy that can create shots for himself, that gives him other opportunities to rest on offense to get easier baskets because he has other players to contribute to that load, which takes a load off him and balances out the offense and give them more weapons because he'll be a mover, he'll be a poster, he'll be able to play the boards. But it's harder to do that when you don't have another ball handler, especially in that pick and roll, in that pick and pop, or even if that pick and dump, or that pick and lob, or the kick out for the three that Blake Griffin showed that he can hit. It's easier to do it when you have somebody else creating it for you, or you have the floor space and then the 3-point shooter to open up the floor so you can drive, so you can knock down that jumper. It's harder to knock down these shots when everybody is keen in on you and focusing on you. Same with Andre Drummond. It's harder to score a lot of points when everybody know the only way you can score is by dunking. When everybody knows that, people can gang up on you, people can try to take that away, and people can clog up the paint. And it's easier to clog up the paint when you don't have that ball handler or that shooting. When you don't have both, it's harder to create your own shot. Because they just clog up the paint and double team and trap you. And it's easier to do it when you only have really two great players to worry about, because Blake Griffin is an all-star caliber player, especially in the East. If you look at his numbers right now, when he was in Detroit, you know he would definitely be an all-star in the East, especially if they're winning, which they won 39 games. That'd be good enough to make the all-star team. Some players don't even win that. Like DeMarcus Cousins never even came close to winning 40 games. And he became a multiple-time All-Star. Same with Kevin Love. He only won 41 games at one season and became an All-Star and an All-NBA player. So I think going into this season, it's going to be tough to tell the Pistons what to do because they're in a fucked up situation where they got a lot of cap held by Blake, by Andre, and by Reggie Jackson that's guaranteed cash. Plus, they have multiple years on these deals. So if they cannot move one of these guys or they want to keep this core together, they only have so high of a ceiling. And the fact that they don't have a top 10 pick this year to try to get another star or try to get another piece that can develop around this core, since they all are young besides Blake, but he's still in his 20s. Um, they're going to be in a struggling situation. I don't really have much advice because they can't draft anybody, so it's tough to say who they should draft. When honestly and truthfully, we don't know who they really going to draft anyway because they only got the 42nd pick this season. So it's not really anybody that they can get in free agency either. Because like I said, they have Blake Griffin, they have Andre Drummond, they have Reggie Jackson making 16 million at the lowest out of all three of them. And with that being said, you can't sign any big name free agents because you just traded for Blake, taking up that last cap spot that you had. Tobias, who could contract, just got extended, and he was on a cheaper deal than Blake. But you combine all those salaries, and you can't even make a play in free agency. You don't have a top 5, top 10 pick to bring in the potential star that can that you can pick for this spot to develop into a star or a perfect role player. We thought that was going to be Stanley Johnson, a guy that can guard the 2 or the 3 or sometimes the 1 position if he switches and give you that switchability. And he hasn't been able to knock down mid-range or three-point shots the whole season, shooting terrible the last 3 years, especially for the spot that he was taken in. You expect him to develop into a potential star. I liked his swagger. I liked his confidence. I liked his upside, especially for Detroit because they didn't really need to bring him along very quickly. But after trading, Tobias and all those players, he became a starter, and he really wasn't ready for the opportunity because he played terrible, and it did hurt the fact that he couldn't shoot. He had those opportunities to knock down shots, and he just couldn't do it. Another thing that really hinders the development of this team is that Stan Van Gundy had a plan. Even if you call him crazy for trading for Blake, even if you call him crazy for trying to build a championship team with Reggie Jackson and Blake Griffin and Andre Drummond, which do seem like it's not good enough, and it might not be, and I think it wasn't anyway, but he's gone. This is the roster, and this is what people got to realize in Detroit. This is the roster that Stan Van Gundy has created. This is the roster that he has built. This was his vision. This was his doing because he was the GM. And now that he's gone, it's hard to see another coach coming in with another coach dream and team that he was trying to build. And now you're coming in trying to figure out how to move these pieces. Kind of like when Stan Van Gundy came in the first time. He comes in with Josh Smith. He comes in with Andre Drummond. He comes in with Greg Monroe. He decides to get rid of Josh Smith. He decides to let Greg Monroe go because remember he opts into a qualifying offer to become an unrestricted free agent the next season, and he signs with the Bucks. And now you're like, okay, Greg Monroe is gone. Josh Smith is gone. Now we can try to build towards the future because now we have more cap space. And then they still was bad enough to get those top 10 picks. They didn't hit on those picks, obviously. And then they ended up trading for Reggie Jackson, which did help them speed up the process and make the playoffs. The same with Tobias Harris. They trade for him. And then now, you get Blake Griffin and Andre Drummond, and you kind of in that Josh Smith, Andre Drummond situation again. And the fact that you don't really have no floor space and a three-point shooter is going to be kind of like that first Detroit team where he came back to. You got a bunch of players that can't shoot and not enough floor space and not enough, you don't have enough. And your cap strap. Blake Griffin making over 30 million the next couple seasons. Andre Drummond, is making 23 million. And you don't really have anything to do. You don't have any, like I said, Luke Kennard was a good pickup for the position. He's 21. He can come in and give you valuable minutes as a 6th or a 7th man. He can score off the dribble. He can handle the ball. He can make plays. He's just a solid player, but he's not a potential star or a potential superstar. He's just a quality rotation player. Obviously, Stanley Johnson was taken in the lottery at age 22. He still has a lot of potential at 6'7", 245. But if he never develops that jump shot, he's not going to really work in this team because they need shooting. Reggie Jackson to me is great, but he hasn't been able to stay healthy. Kay Felder is to me not even an NBA player. James Ennis has shown potential, but if he can't shoot, then what is he going to contribute on this team? Because they don't have any floor spacing. And honestly and truthfully, they're going to have to try to draft another Luke Kennard with this roster since it's built to win now but doesn't have a bright future. With that 42nd pick, is nothing they can really do. They can't really trade up in the draft because they don't really have any assets to trade up for. Bruce Brown is a good pick because they're gonna need a guard at that shooting guard position since they let Avery Bradley go too, and Caldwell Pope. They don't really have a shooting guard besides Luke Kennard. Um, and that's not going to be good enough because you draft back-to-back guards in your draft when you could have just tried to get a better player by evaluating the talent. So worst case scenario, they get a Brandon McCoy, 7-1 out of UNLV. They try to get another point guard, Javon Carter, maybe. Um, Grayson Allen, maybe. Shake Milton, maybe, if they drop that far enough. Or even if they in that area, maybe they drafted before they get a chance. Um, I don't really like this Detroit team. And y'all don't really have, just like when Stan Van came in, y'all don't really have that many options. It's not any picks that y'all can do. Y'all too good to be bad enough to get a top 10 pick unless another injury happen. And y'all too cap strapped to be able to move a free agent, to get a free agent. Y'all don't have the top 5, top 10, top 20 pick that can come in right away and could contribute or give y'all a brighter future. Like, y'all don't have anything. Y'all in a bad position. It's not really much I can say. Um, Trading for Blake Griffin was a huge blow to y'all salary cap. Extending Andre Drummond to a contract of 23, 25 million in the next couple years, on a guy that is probably a third or fourth best option on the championship team. That's not good. But then again, I do see why they did it because they need talent to sell tickets. They need to try to at least make the playoffs to stay competitive. But with that being said, that's picks that they don't get because they're winning too many games. The winning 39 games isn't really that good considering that you're not in the lottery. And since you have Blake Griffin and Andre Drummond, you're not really going to be competing for a championship in the East. You look at Milwaukee, you look at Boston, you look at Philly, and they have brighter futures. And they have potential cap space in the future from the next 1 or 2 years. Even Philly has it right now. And even if they didn't, they still have Ben Simmons, they still have Embiid, but they still have players like Fultz and Saric that can still play, even though they might be cap strapped in the future by paying all those players. You know, they still have a brighter future and they have a higher ceiling than this Detroit team. Um, I think they back in where they started with Josh Smith and Andre Drummond with all those salaries and all those players taking up a lot of the bulk of the salary. I feel like they're in the same position. Not enough scoring, not enough floor spacing, and they might be good enough to make the playoffs, but they're going to be a 7th or 8th seed out in the first round. Mediocrity. And there's not really too many ways you can get out of it because Blake Griffin contract is bad. Andre Drummond is the perennial All Star, and he's young. And Reggie Jackson is always injured, and even if he was healthy, you might make the playoffs, but you're not going to win the championship with this core. So you stuck in a world where you're not good enough to win the championship, and also you're not bad enough to get a good pick, but you don't have the brightest future, even with the pick, even with the roster you have now. The future looks dim in Detroit, and there's not really too many ways you can correct it besides trading players, but you don't have the picks to really add on to get rid of these salaries. So, Detroit, I wouldn't be smiling right now. Check out my website, NossaPlayground.com. Link in the description, comment section below. Check out my Facebook page, NossaPlayground.com. Link in the description, in the comment section below. Quinn Wade, Basketball Nossas, I'm going, and let me know what you guys think in the comment section below.